Hello and welcome to the Property Magic Podcast, not only in audio, but for the very first time, also on video on my YouTube channel. So I've changed the format of the podcast. Not only am I going to share with you some of the insights into what I'm doing and what we're teaching on the Property Mastermind program, I'm actually going to have a guest in each episode who's going to share their experience and expertise. And I thought, oh, no better guest than a very good friend of mine, one of our most successful masterminders. He was a top performer his year and the founder of the incredibly successful Property Entrepreneur. So welcome, Dan Hill. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Excellent. Well, Dan, you're my very first guest on this new version of the Property Magic podcast. So I thought what would be a really good topic for this podcast is understand the journey that someone goes through as a property investor. You've been, 10, 12 years now on the property investing journey. And I think let's start at the very beginning. Obviously, you've been a serial entrepreneur for many, many years. What got you into property in the first place, Dan?
Well, I started on property when I was on the buildings, when I was about 15 years old, and physically building the buildings.
Yeah.
Figured out pretty quickly that sucked. And even though you can make some decent money, it was not the way to live the life.
Yeah.
So then I decided to study business so I could learn how to build the properties.
Yeah.
Went to university, started a number of companies, had a DJ company,
Yeah.
nightclub promotion, similar
Yes.
to you.
Yeah.
And then when the market tanked in 2007, 2008, I thought, when this comes back around, that'll be my time to go back into it. And in 2010, I started looking. 2011, did the 3-day Accelerator.
Yeah.
Went and did my first deal, which took me a year.
Yes.
And then went on to Mastermind.
Yeah.
And then I think I did 18 deals in that year.
Yeah. So hang on a minute. So let's just think about that. So you came and did our 3-day course, Accelerator, to learn everything you need to know.
Yeah.
And you're a pretty successful guy. You probably thought you could do it on your own. Went out, only did one deal because you were running your businesses at the same time. So you're pretty busy. But that's a bit of a change from coming onto the year-long mastermind and suddenly doing 18 deals. So what was the difference?
Well, the same as what we teach on Property Entrepreneur. You only need two things in life. Whether you want to cut weight or you want to build a business or whatever, bake a cake. You need the recipe,
Yeah.
the ingredients, and then someone who's been doing it for a decade to show you the tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
And from 3 days on the Accelerator, I got the knowledge, the experience to go and do one.
Yeah.
It took me a year because I didn't really have that support.
Yeah.
Then did Mastermind for a year,
Yeah.
where I had a peer group, I had coaches, and somebody who actually knows what to do, and they've done it.
Yes.
And then from that, it sort of hockey sticked. So
Yeah.
it's really good.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, because that's an amazing result, a lot of property in a short amount of time. So you didn't buy all of those, you started rent to rent, and then you started to buy. So talk us through the strategy you used when you first started. Why did you use those strategies?
Yeah, so we've built over 40 different companies, bought and sold businesses, and anytime we go into it, we want to test the water.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett says, don't test the water with both feet. So
Yes.
it's like pretty sage advice.
Yeah.
So what we did was when we understood HMOs, we started doing rent to rent because I
Yeah.
realised that two things. One was if I use rent to rent in an area first, I don't have to put a couple $100,000 in.
Yeah.
I could put $5,000 in and I could test the market
Yeah.
and it's quicker. And the second was when I was scaling the portfolio up, it would be a lot faster.
Yeah.
And in the same as any market, like economics is a big thing for me. I know that markets turn. When it turns, in the same way I want to go up quick, I want to come down quick.
Yeah.
And when the market did turn in 2015, I was able to go in that one city alone from 200 units to about 110
Yeah.
in 6 months. Whereas if you owned all those property
Yes.
and in a downward market, you're in a really tough position.
Yeah. So it's a great way to test the strategy, see if it's right for you, so dip your toe in, so to speak. And then once it's right, you then scale it up and you can do it very, very quickly. So rent to rent is a great strategy. But then on the downside of rent to rent, you don't own the property. So you then went on to buy properties, doing joint ventures. And one of the things I noticed you've done, Dan, you've been very good at teaching or using what we teach about not using your money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you did the HMOs and then obviously you've progressed on after that. So
Well, in the same way as the title of this podcast, Property Magic, is there's this box of magic tricks that you don't know about until, for me, was doing Accelerator. When people
Yeah.
want to know about business, they do Property Entrepreneur. And one of the things that I thought when I started Mastermind was I needed to sell my company, liquidate my cash, and then use that to buy property.
Yeah.
And you said to me in the first workshop, you don't need to use your own money. And
Yeah.
that concept then was alien. Now, I mean, I'm looking at 2 office blocks on the way here, £7 million. I have no intention of putting any of my own money into that deal
Yeah.
because now it's just second nature. Whereas back then, that seemed alien. And I did what you said. I went and found friends, family, then scaled up, and then eventually, as the deals moved up, start with rent to rent, then HMOs, then small blocks of flats, bigger blocks of flats.
Yeah.
And then your investors get bigger. So friends, family, network. And then I went to a PIN meeting met my first big high net worth investor,
Yes.
and ended up doing a £10 million joint venture. And
Yeah.
then he was actually around at the hall having dinner last week. 10 years ago that was. We've been in business 10 years now.
That's amazing.
He's fully retired on it. I've done really well from it. So,
but also the key there to be able to use someone else's money, you need to know what you're doing first of all. And I think that anyone lending you money wants to make sure you are credible, and their biggest concern is you're not going to lose their money. So that education is really important, isn't it? Because you've got to know what you're doing, right?
Yeah, and especially when you start out, you're going to be working with private investors who've got 50 grand and it really is their life saving. And that experience is quite a good process to go through because you understand the responsibility, the sensitivity. Whereas when you start working with big investors, they can send you £500,000, not on a handshake, but it's very business.
Yes.
When things go wrong, they get it, they're pragmatic.
Yeah.
But actually that education and understanding how to communicate with them, all the stuff you taught us about how to understand what their objective is.
Yeah.
Some of them will want 25% return, all their money back out. Others will want 6%, but they'll want first charge, don't want to lose a penny. Understanding how to facilitate that in a win-win is, that's the secret. That is the magic. That's how it works.
Great. Now let's talk a little bit about Property Entrepreneur, because that's a great business you have, which helps people systemize and grow their business. And you don't actually teach any property stuff, do you? But it's all about the business systems, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when I did Mastermind and I broke the record for the most amount of money made in a year and got
I think it was £120,000 profit per annum within 12 months. It was the record at the time.
It was 186, but we'll say 120.
Okay, I think Josh beat you though, didn't he?
Probably.
Josh.
So many people have beaten me since
exactly,
then.
Yeah, but it was at the time you were definitely the pioneer. You were the record setter at that time.
Yeah, and to me it just seemed obvious. People said, like, I got all this attention afterwards, which is where Property Entrepreneur came from.
Yeah.
People said, how can you go from basically only having one property to doing 18 in less than 12 months?
Yeah.
And I said, well, it was easy because I don't look at property as property. I look at it as a business.
Yeah.
I own all sorts of businesses. I've had events companies, design companies, international companies. And to me, the fact it's property is just property, but it's ultimately a business. So I put systems in, employed people within the first month of Mastermind, and then it was inevitable that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's now what we teach people. Once people know how to do property through coming through PIN, doing the Accelerator, doing the Mastermind.
Yeah.
Once you actually know how to make money in business, then you need to know how to systemize it and scale it and maybe even sell it. And we're the next level after that. That's what we do.
So a lot of people who do Mastermind then come on to Property Entrepreneur. But obviously it's not just property companies. There are lots of non-property companies there as well. So the systems work on any kind of business, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's only 5 things you need in any business. I've bought, sold, systemized and scaled over 40 companies myself.
Yeah.
And I've invested in over 100. And I can tell you from every company I've ever looked at, there's only 5 problems. And all we do is we teach people who own businesses how to overcome those 5 problems. And that's it. That's the secret to getting on the business, not in it.
Yeah.
I'm the chairman of a group of companies. I don't answer my phone. I don't have an inbox.
Yeah.
I'm an investor. I own the companies. Whereas the trap a lot of investors and landlords get caught in is they're operating the companies. They're going to site, they're speaking to agents. We all start there, but you don't have to stop there. And for those who want to go up a level, that's what Property Entrepreneur is for.
And you got a lot of great models on Property Entrepreneur. One of the ones I particularly like, which I think is really relevant to everyone who's watching this podcast or listening to the podcast, is that you have that triangle where you've got cash flow on the bottom, then profit, and then assets. And I think it's important to recognize where you are in that pyramid, because I see a lot of people who are new into property and they want to get into it because they want to replace their income, and they think, I'm going to do a big development. And that's probably not the best thing for them to do, is it? Because the development's going to swallow cash, whereas you got rent-to-rent and HMOs in first to get cash flow first. Then you moved up to making profit when doing developments.
And I think that was the whole idea when you were doing the intro to this podcast. You want to get the message across of this journey.
Yes.
Developments, you can make more money than you've ever seen in your life, but you can also lose everything you've ever had.
Yeah.
And one of the dangers of property, especially when you haven't got training, or worse, you've got training from the wrong people.
Yes.
Is they think it's go hard or go home, bigger is better.
Yeah.
And we actively teach on Property Entrepreneur that's not the case, because you've got to go through the gears, especially like, you and I have been doing this stuff for like 10, 20, 30 years. This is my 21st year in business. This is your 28th in property.
28th year in property. It's about my 35th year in business.
35th year in business. You can't stay in business that long with an existing public profile and a solid reputation unless you can stay the course.
Yeah.
There's loads of people that have grown quicker than us,
Yeah.
but where are they now? They're
bust, yeah.
Exactly. They overcook it. And when you understand the gears, so like Simon was saying about strategies,
Yeah.
nowadays I can't imagine I'd ever do a rent to rent. But at the beginning, I couldn't imagine I would do anything that wasn't a rent to rent.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing blocks of 10, 50, 100 apartments, 80 houses. I probably wouldn't go back and do a HMO, but you've got to go through those gears.
Yes.
And the 3 levels that you talk about, cash flow is level 1 is all about paying the bills. You can go and do a development that's going to make you £1 million, but it'll take you 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And if you've got a mortgage to pay and kids to feed,
you might get bust in the meantime.
Exactly, it's going to be feast and famine. It's not going to be enjoyable. So level 1 is break even.
Yeah.
And there's 2 ways to do that. One is to reduce your outgoings. The other one is to increase your cash flow, service accommodation, HMOs, letting agency. But as soon as you can break even and survive, stop. And the trap is people go out and build big, noisy cash flow businesses like I did, end up with 1,000 HMO rooms around the country.
Yeah.
That's not fun. That's not sexy. That's not lucrative. It was just an ego play.
Yeah.
But then once you've got that cash flow, stop, then do profit, which is large capital events. That increases your net wealth. Profit is about balance sheet. Cash flow is about P&L.
Yeah.
Then once you've got those large capital events, 100, 500k a year in liquid profits, you then invest that in assets. And assets is the top of the pile. And the more boring, the better. The lower the risk, the lower the return. One of the office blocks I was looking at on the way in, it will be a 6% yield, which is, for most people listening to this, alien. Why would I want to do that? Well, it's a 10-year lease. It's full FRI. It's index linked. I'll never have to go there for 10 years, let alone worry about tenants, drinking each other's milk. And
so it's kind of making the money, then it's just getting a safe, steady return on that money.
It's living off the steam. So without going too much into it, the only aim of the game is to live off the steam. It's to work hard, earn once, and then live forever. So earn your money, save it up, invest it in 6-8% returns. And then when you've got enough, for me, it's blocks of flats, commercial buildings, private schools. When you own enough of those assets, that took me 20 years to build. But now every single penny of my Rolls Royce outside, my house and estate, every single penny of that is off low risk, low return assets. That is the aim of the game. But it took me 20 years without a blueprint. With PIN doing property and then property entrepreneur doing business, you could do that in like 5 to 10 years easily. Yeah. Some people have done it in less.
And the 2 really important concepts you said there, one was work once, get paid forever.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I love about property. And I think very often we live in this microwave society where people want everything straight away. And they try something, and I deliberately use the word try, they dabble, they don't get the results from straight away and think, oh, that's too hard. But you've got to recognize there is some time and effort required. It's not a get rich quick. Put the time and effort in. But then once you've done that, it's the best rewarded time you're ever going to have because you get paid every single month from the cash flow and you get long-term capital growth. That's why I love property so much. Work once, get paid forever. But you do need to put that work in, don't you?
And it's all a long game. People have heard you and I on podcasts before, heard either of us speak. It's all about relationships, reputation. And it is playing a long game. There is no elusive pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Every level has another devil. You've got to play the long game. And you've got to stick it out. Most people jump from lily pad to lily pad and you wonder why they keep falling in the pond. It's like, choose one thing. It's like drilling for oil. If you're going to drill for oil, you want the gold, you want the oil. You can't just keep drilling half a metre down. You need to find the right place to go and then go deep, deep, deep. And then you can pump that oil forever.
Yeah. Great analogy there. Brilliant. So we talked about a lot of things I wanted to cover. Obviously, Dan, you're going to be coming to speak at Property Magic Live for us. So depending on if you're watching this or listening, you might have missed Property Magic Live, our annual event. And we're going to talk about some of the models in a bit more depth. But also, something hopefully people will be able to catch, we have our virtual property exhibition where we get some of the top experts who you normally see at the big property shows. We get them for a day online so you can watch from the comfort of your own home. You're on our next virtual property exhibition and you're going to be talking very much about the economy. And let's just touch on that right now. I believe, Dan, now is such a great time to buy. I always say that. It's always a good time to buy. But right now, because we're in this buyer's market, because we've got this uncertainty about the Labour government who came in July, I think there are a lot of investors sitting back and waiting, lots of sellers who need to sell. And so I'm seeing amazing opportunities right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's all property and economics and business is a game. And the aim of the game is to master the rules and then obviously put the ball in the back of the net. whatever's happened, we made more money in the pandemic than we had in the probably like 5 years before that.
Yeah.
Because we understood where the opportunities were, where the risks were, how to navigate it. And we came out of that, so did most of our property entrepreneurs, in better shape than they went in. So anything to do with change or uncertainty or volatility tends to work well for a capitalist strategy, because what you want is low competition and high margins. And what causes low competitions is high uncertainty, risk, headline of the paper saying the world's going to end. And having a big change like Labour, over the last 2 years on Property Entrepreneur, we've called it the window of opportunity, and saying there's this really clear window of opportunity to go out there and do certain deals, but it's closing. And what I would say now is, now Labour's in, it's the turning of the tide.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen now is one of two things. Either the UK economy, the political system, the planning reform, either everything's now going to turn and we've got fresh blood and it's all going to go again, in which case, great, we've got this window of opportunity where you've still got low market confidence, high rates, and increasing rents, where you can get a real arbitrage, understanding how to play that. Or second, that's if the Labour government get it right, there's this window and then it will hockey stick. Second is, let's say, like every other party, they make all these promises and they don't work, which is a very likely outcome. What you have got is, because you've got a new party, a new blood, and they're really committed to making some big statements, you're going to see some real bold decisions take place, which they're probably going to regret. And it might be, so initially, it's like putting VAT on private schools.
Yeah.
First, I owned a private school, it's supposed to come in September, that would have been bad enough. Now it's coming in January. Probably not the right thing to do. But what they're trying to do, not bringing it in January, September would have been fine. What they're trying to do is make a name for themselves, make a statement. And the last time you would have seen this would be like bounce back loans and Sybil's. Let's get all this money out the door on Monday morning, completely uncertified, self-certified, no personal guarantee. You can get 50 grand. I wouldn't be surprised if we see development finance come out, or Homes England start releasing some crazy policy, or even them say that if a local council is below its planning target and they're not delivering the homes, and then and they can't grant planning permission, it will get centralised to this 200-person strong planning team who will basically rubber stamp it because they want to be the heroes.
Yeah.
And in 12 to 18 months' time, they'll probably regret it. But I'm just about to put a planning app in for about 80 houses, because I just think if the wind goes in the right direction, you'll be able to capitalise in that little window. So absolutely. But you need to know how to play the game. You need to understand economics. I'll teach that at the conference. And then you need to understand how to do deals. And Simon will take you through those.
Great. Excellent. So, amazing insight there. Going to go a lot more at Property Magic Live and also at the virtual property experience. So I think we're going to put a link in the show notes below the video to actually come and join. It's a free event. You've got speakers like Dan, lots of different strategies. Because it's times like this where it's really important not to try and do this on your own. You've got to have a bit of insight from people who have been there, done this, can see the opportunities. Because most people are going to sit back, wait, and completely miss this. There's probably once in a decade opportunity, but we want to make sure that's not the case for you. So click on the link below, come and register for the virtual property experience to benefit from Dan and also the other speakers. Dan, any final words you would have about the market or property, or if there's one big tip you could give people who are a property investor, wherever they are on the journey, what would that tip be?
I think my emerging sense, so I've got to a point now where I'm stepping out of the game. I've sort of completed the game up to the level I want to get to, and I'm really looking at what my next passion is, purpose is. I've tried to retire twice and it's been a disaster.
Yeah, and not advisable for someone like yourself or me.
Definitely not. It's dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything could happen. And the big thing I'm starting to come clear on is this concept of living off the steam. And to me, it's just obvious. I was always brought up or just grew into this mindset of work once, earn forever. And in my head, for 21 years, every year I thought, I just need to stay in business. I just need to stay in business. And what I've realised is globally, and specifically in the UK, we've actually ended up in this trap of modern slavery where people are basically, society commits us to working 40 hours a week for 40 years, doing jobs we don't like, just about surviving to then retire quietly and whatever.
On 40% less income generally. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm thinking my big thing is all about work once, earn forever. Is you're going to work anyway. Why not find something you enjoy? Work really hard, make some good money, save it, be diligent, be shrewd, invest it, and play the long game. Don't try and make 100 grand a year and spend 100 grand a year, or make £1 million a year and spend £1 million a year. Try and live below your means, Bottom out, I lived on a narrowboat on 750 quid a month 4 years ago in the pandemic, just to bank cash. And then when you come out the other end and you own the assets and you don't even have to go to work, you don't have any tenants, you don't have any utility bills, you don't have any voids, you don't have any mortgages, you can just get up and go and do whatever you want every day. That is the ultimate destination for everyone to get to. And whether you're in property or you're in business, just try and get out of that mindset of you're going to work and this is your job and it's a business. It's not. The aim of the game is to live off the steam. It's to save the money, invest it in the assets, de-risk, de-leverage, and get to a point where you can live off 50 or 500 grand a year, whatever you want. But it's all coming off the steam of the assets you own because you worked once and then you can earn forever. And I would say you want to get that in your mindset. You want to teach it to your kids. If I decide to go on a big rampage again soon, it'll be with that message. So people have that logic of the aim isn't to stay in the game. The aim is to complete the game and get out of the game. And then you do things when you've got freedom of choice. I can't tell you what the feeling's like when you don't have to do things for money.
Yeah, and I think we're very fortunate, Dan, in that we both really love what we do. We like teaching and helping other people. And actually, if you do what you love and you're good at it, you also then get financially rewarded well for it as well, because you help people get great results.
Well, I was listening to, do you know Spears magazine?
Yes.
So ultra high net worth, they've started releasing some YouTube videos. And there was one on there yesterday about the most expensive school in the world. It's 150 grand a year. And the policy that they teach kids. And what they teach kids is they don't teach them GCSEs, they don't teach them A-levels. They teach them, take them through a process to understand what do you actually enjoy.
Yeah.
And then when they find what they enjoy, they then teach them how to excel at it. And everyone listening to this, I'd be like, what is it you enjoy? Is it doing deals? Is it refurbs? Is it development? Is it business? Is it helping other people? And then once you know what it is, double down on it. And if you're good at it, it's that whole ikigai thing.
Yeah.
What are you good at? What can you get paid for? What does the world need? And what do you enjoy? You find those 4 things and you'll have a great 20, 30 years in doing this stuff and you'll make some money. And life's for living. It's too short.
Fantastic. Well, that is a great note to end on. Life is definitely too short. It's all about living. So try and find what you're doing. And I think sometimes just in property, people think, well, I'm not really passionate about property. Look, you don't have to be passionate about property. I think you need to be passionate about what property can do for you. Use it as a vehicle to get to the point where you no longer have to work. Then you've got the time, freedom, choice to do what you want to do and follow that passion. And you might not know what that is, but when you've got the time and space, you can then find out, discover what the passion is. So Dan, thank you so much for speaking on my first Property Magic video podcast. It's been great to have you here. I'm really looking forward to seeing you at Property Magic Live and also at the virtual property exhibition. So look for the link below. Until the next episode, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. And as you're watching on YouTube now, make sure you like this video, come and comment below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that anytime we bring out a new video, you'll be the first to be notified. As ever, I encourage you to invest in knowledge, invest in skill, and look out for the next episode of the Property Magic Podcast next Tuesday.